They
Yeah,
started this
maybe.
marketing campaign and they said, they basically told women, if your husband really loves you or if your fiance really loves you, he'll spend 2 months salary on your diamond.
The most fun wedding I've ever been to actually was in Las Vegas.
All I could think about is how many people I could help with that money. I would just feel too guilty spending all that money on a
Right.
party.
Spent like, oh God, probably 300,000 on this sit down dinner for 350 people plus all this extravaganza that went with it.
This week, Kimbra and I were talking about weddings and the price of a wedding. And I've always been of the opinion that being very practical, it seemed like such a waste of money to me. I looked it up, and in 2019, the average cost of a wedding was $33,000,
Wow.
which is
And
a
that's
lot of
actually
money.
cheap, but that's actually
Well,
cheap for what I've heard,
well, yeah, and that's like the average
That's
person,
true.
including probably the poorest people. And I think if you're putting that kind of money out, that could go towards a down payment of a house. That could give your life a really nice start, a big
Mm-hmm.
boost.
Mm-hmm.
I know then a lot of guests give money too, so they
Mm-hmm.
walk away. I don't know how much that would average out to
That's
be.
true.
So let's say,
In,
what if you had 100 guests and
in
each
each
one of them gave fifty
$50.
dollars?
Yeah. So
So that's like 5,000. That's still not enough.
it's not much. Yeah. Guess
um,
you have to invite a lot more people than that. Oh.
yeah, yeah.
I've, al- I've
But
always,
then it's more expensive because
yeah,
it's
that's true too.
you're
We're
spending.
having potluck.
Which I also think that's kind of a shady reason to invite people, because you're going to get a gift. That's not really the purpose of inviting someone. So I don't know. I feel like it's a waste of money. Remember the episode of Friends with Chandler and Monica were getting married, and Monica wanted to have a very expensive wedding, and Chandler kept calling it a party. He's like, "We're going to spend all this money on a party." If you like our videos, go ahead and click on like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Thanks. And that's really what it is. And
I know. That's what I think too. It's like I'd rather just have I always, if I get married, I want to, have a small, I always want to keep it under 50 people. That's it. 25 for
yeah,
you, 25 for me.
yeah, yeah. My wedding, I got married very young, and the only thing I was concerned, well, I wanted two things. I wanted a really pretty dress. And I wanted a nice picture of he and I to save, to treasure in our old age, which we aren't treasuring in our old age because we're not together. But those are the only two things that I really cared about. Also, the other issue is, families fighting. You all have all
Oh
that
my gosh.
infighting of who's sitting by whom and who's doing what, and the
Yeah.
in-laws, and
Yeah, weddings are the most stressful things. Like I was telling you earlier on the phone that I've been the wedding singer about 3 times. I swear, three of my closest friends are, and you'll be singing at my wedding, won't you? And the last one, Sarah, if you're listening, that was like the easiest going, most smoothest performance I ever had, because she had it all ready for me, just got up and sang and left. But aside from that, I've had all these other weddings and drama that goes on. I told you I got in a fight with one of my friends because I didn't send the RSVP in on time, and she made such a big deal about me performing. So I hired a accompanist and rehearsed with the other. It was going to be a duet, and then because I didn't send my RSVP in on time, she assumed I wasn't coming, so she hired another band. And I was like, "Okay, we're ready for their." She's like, "Well, we because I didn't hear from you, I got someone else." I'm thinking, what? After all that time and effort I put into rehearsing that song that you wanted. So it's just like stupid petty stuff. And then we ended up having a falling out about it and stuff. But and then one of my earlier friends from that I knew in high school, when she ended up getting married, I told you she was pretty wealthy, but she spent like, oh God, probably 300,000 on this sit down dinner for 350 people plus all this extravaganza that went with it.
Oh my gosh.
And she told me afterwards, if I was ever to do that again, I would never do that, because she said I didn't even get to talk to like 1/10 of the people, so it's like, why do you want to spend all that money, when you don't even get to see the people?
And
right?
yeah, not even really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, there were, I had a couple of very wealthy boyfriends, and of course, you're thinking, imagining a wedding, and you know, when they mention like, oh, you can have anything you want, you can have, you know, $1 million wedding, and I'm like, oh my gosh, all I could think about is how many people I could help with that money. I just like, I would just feel too guilty spending all that money on a party.
Right.
I've always been so practical and very simple in my tastes that, I mean, I like nice things. And we were also talking about jewelry when I was younger. I love jewelry. I still love jewelry. And I have some nice pieces, but I remember being younger and, you know, having these expensive diamonds and thinking, well, what makes it so expensive? Like, it's just a rock. Like, I remember asking, I dated a jeweler, and I was asking him, I'm like, well, what's, you know, what makes it so expensive? It's just what is it? And he's explaining to me, you know, it's a rock, a piece of, whatever mineral in the earth, and it develops. And I'm like, but why is it different? Like, what makes this one different than this rock, or this gemstone different than this? What makes it more valuable? And I'm like, well, what's the purpose? Like, does it do something? Does it have, you know, and I guess diamonds are the hardest surface, and there are some things that make it important, but I just, I never understood it. Why the value. Yeah. And the color cut and clarity, and the more perfect it is, and yeah, okay,
and
but
rare, and like rare, I guess, probably, like,
well, but it doesn't mean anything to me. Like, it never, I don't know. I just never saw it. You know, I bet a lot of women, you know, they buy fake diamonds. They buy the cubic zirconias because they have these really, I've seen women with really big diamonds. I'm like, your husband can't afford that. I'm pretty sure that's not real. And who cares? Go ahead. It looks the same.
I read about this a long time ago, about how it was some jewelry company that ended up kind of making it such a big deal, you know, with the ads.
Well, they started advertising. They went on a marketing campaign. Maybe De Beers. They started this marketing campaign, and they said, you know, they basically told women, if your husband really loves you, or if your fiance really loves you, he'll spend 2 months' salary on your diamond. And that's how they started making, you know, raising the value of them. And that's just another manipulative ploy in our society that people fall for with these.
These are my thoughts. If some guy wants to give me a big old rock, I'm going to take it. But I usually don't wear a lot of jewelry, as we were discussing, because I'm always doing so many things with my hands and stuff. It's like, I don't want anything in the way. So I'm a very natural person that way. But it is something that you can hang on to. And, you know, funnily enough, I've heard some story that you're just reminding me. I've heard some funny stories about, I had a friend. She wasn't a close friend. She was a friend. She was on that, she was one of the people on Bachelor. Is that the show where she was one of the people he was going to propose to? Was that called The Bachelor?
The Bachelorette or The Bachelor?
Well, she was The Bachelorette. I'm not sure. But she was one of many, and he ended up picking her. So I don't know if that's The Bachelor.
Okay, so
or Bachelor.
I guess The Bachelor, yeah.
Yeah. So she ended up being the one that he proposed to, and he gave her like the ring was valued at, it was at least $50,000. I remember that. And so they got engaged, moved into a house, and then he turned out to be, I guess, not everything that he said he was, at least monetarily. So she ended up, I don't know if it was because of that, but they ended up breaking up, and she didn't want to give the ring back, you know, and he was like, no, you're giving the ring back. And so there was a whole big thing about, I don't know what the law says, but I feel like if you, the etiquette, I think, is if you break up with that person, you should at least offer to give the ring back. Right? That's
I would give it back. I've given a couple rings back. They weren't engagement rings, but they were gifts.
Right.
Actually, 2 guys gave me rings, and I gave them back when I broke up with them because I didn't feel entitled to keep those.
Right.
I don't know.
If I'm not going to marry you.
Yeah.
I would feel bad about taking the ring. But I don't remember what happened. I think she offered him like, instead of 25,000, I think she offered him 25,000. She was going to sell it. I don't remember, but I just thought that was such a funny story, because then if it's an expensive, really expensive ring, then it could cause a lot of, you know, you can go to court over it.
Yeah. And the right thing, the moral thing, is to give it back, because it's a token of love with a promise to marry, and by accepting it, you've promised to marry. And if you don't marry, then you have to give it back because you broke your promise. even if it's their fault, you know, you broke
Right.
your promise.
That's
So.
true. That's a good point.
Unless, I don't know, maybe I might be a little, well, no, I'm really stubborn that way. So if, even if like, if he'd done something horrible and lied or misled or betrayed me or cheated on me, the vindictive side of me would want to keep it, but I'm not like that. I'm more proud. So I'd be like, I
Right.
don't want your stupid
I don't want
ring.
your lousy
Give it
ring.
back.
Yeah.
And then later I'd be like, darn, what was I
I-
thinking? I
Oh
should've
God,
kept
I've
the
done
ring.
that so many times. I'm like, why did I give that back? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I should have kept it. At
It's
least
like,
I get that.
I know. I have the sad memories and I don't even have the thing anymore, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, I've kept a lot of things, never jewelry, but I've kept expensive gifts because, you know, a gift is a gift. But you're right, a ring is something that's like a promissory note. Especially if it's quite valuable, or like a family heirloom. Sometimes people
Oh
give
yeah,
family
especially
heirlooms,
then.
you know.
Yeah, if it's a family heirloom, you really should give it back because the
Right.
sentimental value
Sure.
too.
And
So yeah, I would give it back.
so yes, so I think what is the moral of the story here, that we should keep weddings on the DL. No, keep them low.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, just I guess for me personally, and I don't want to judge people. I've gone to some beautiful weddings, fun, beautiful weddings, and so you know, if somebody feels like they have the money and they want to spend the money, but I do see some struggling couples spending a ton of money on a wedding, and I don't think that's very practical. And then when you're going to spend, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million on a wedding, I also think that is
Extravagant.
what's the word, pretentious and selfish, because think of all the people you could help. You know, $100,000 you can get a really nice wedding. You don't need to spend $1 million, and if you have that kind of money, you know, give 900,000 away to,
Give it to charity. I know a lot of people will think this is not the thing they would want, but the most fun wedding I've ever been to actually was in Las Vegas. And, you know, I'm not a super big Las Vegas person, but I do enjoy myself when I go 2 days, you know, see shows. You get to eat some good food now. They have nice restaurants when there's not a pandemic. But the most fun I've ever had was when I went to a wedding and there was just like 4 or 5 of us all together. And we just had dinner in a really nice restaurant there. And it was just fun because it was so low stress. You know,
and more intimate, you know, you're just with your closest friends. You don't need to be with a big, you know, 100 people that you like, you know, you're not going to talk to throughout the night.
And
yeah, I thought if I got married again, I want to go to Vegas for my.
Yeah, I think it's great because they got it down to a science. You know what I mean? They got the bing, the bong, the you know, you're in, you're out.
Yeah. Can't you get married by Elvis or something too?
That would be drive through.
Yes,
I think didn't Pamela Anderson get married through drive-through Elvis on one of her weddings? I don't remember.
Well, now with the pandemic, that would be even more practical because you just drive through.
You can get married in Vegas for probably, say you keep it to like 5-6 people, you know, including the groom and the bride, probably for like $1,500, you know, including the hotel and stuff. So because everybody gets there themselves, they'll get to the Las Vegas, and then even if you paid for their hotel, it's not going to for 2 days, right? So So when you get married, and you better invite me because I want to go to Vegas.
Of course. Okay. You'll be there. And so, the moral of the story for us is, what do you say? Let's say you meet some very wealthy guy, very well off guy. Are you going to go for it and
spend a lot of money on my wedding? No.
Have a big wedding?
No. I mean, if he really insisted on it, for sure. I mean, if that floats your boat.
It meant something to him.
Yeah, I'm going to say, we're getting a wedding planner, because the one for me, I don't feel guilty about spending money. That's terrible, I know. But unless it was a super extravagant amount that, yes, you could help a lot of people, especially nowadays. But even a semi-expensive wedding, I wouldn't feel guilty about it. But what I do not want is stress. And I've been a part of so many weddings, like I told you, that it's so stressful. Even the, you know, ones that, like my high school friends that I knew since high school, I told you, caused fights. They're in family fighting, and I'm like, what the heck? This is just so weird, you know?
Well, as far as that goes, I always thought it's the bride and groom's wedding, so what they want is what should happen, instead of, you know, the both parents start getting involved and saying you have to do this and you have to invite that person. I think if it's your wedding, everybody should give in to what the bride and groom want.
That's true.
Shut your mouth, show up. do it the way they say that they want it done, or don't go.
Mhm,
Because it
mhm.
is their wedding too. So I think a lot of people get too involved where they shouldn't.
That's true. That's true. But weddings are fun. I mean, the actual event, the moment,
Yeah.
are a lot of fun. But it's
Yeah.
just everything leading up to it is always just drama. Unless you want, like I said, something. Like I said, if I ever get married, I'm going to do a small wedding, so it's going to be under
Yeah.
50 people. So no one get offended if you're not invited.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I agree.
My accountant is not being invited. It's like, well, maybe mine is because he's a friend of mine. But it's like my friend that got married, I told you, that's had 350 people sit down dinner. She invited everybody, like her gardener, her this or that. It's like, it's just too much. You don't get to talk to them. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's an intimate thing. Like you're uniting with your partner. So I would think you just want the closest people, not just
right.
so and so, whatever cleaned my car or fixed my car, a year
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, yeah. Unless you're
Um,
that rich, you just can do that. But I don't know. But anyway, what I think is, yeah, save them, especially if you're in your 20s, save the money, because gosh, just
yeah.
buy it, try to buy a condo or something, because that's money that's going to help you grow. You're
Yeah.
building equity. With a
Yes.
party, you're just
It's
doing
an
one night.
investment.
Yes, it is investment. And with a party, like a wedding party, it's just one night. Just get a
It's
good
gone.
photographer. Get the picture, you know.
Yeah. Get the picture so you can have your treasured memory. And make it meaningful between you and your partner, your
Mm-hmm.
spouse, husband or wife. So yeah, that's what I think. I'm just always been very a practical person. So
I'm
but
with
I
you
like
there.
weddings, and I don't criticize anyone who wants to have a big wedding and put it on. And I've gone to some fun ones and, um, had a good time. And I never judged them for spending a lot of money on their wedding. That's what they want to do. It's not my business. But for me personally, yeah, no, Vegas, baby.
Vegas, baby, Vegas.
If there is a next time, I'm not saying there's going to be a next time.
There might. Never say never. All right, guys. So this is the moral of the story. Save your money unless you've got a lot of it and you don't care. But I think you should save your money and make it
Give some
more.
to charity.
Yeah, charity. And if you're scrimping and saving, buy a house or buy something where you can build your future. That's my
Yes.
opinion.
Yes. Be more practical.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.